but there are some players that you want to get rid of before it's too late because, hey, like what Nate always says, we do not hate players. We hate values. So values, they go all over the place like the stock market. You got to cash in when you still can. Zach, you're choosing violence today. Who's your first player that you're going to sell?
Yeah, I guess I should preface this with the caveat that I've never been too far on the pendulum of Drake London, right? I've never been like, oh, he's, somebody you should sell, somebody you should buy. But at this point, I'm just not a believer in where the community and the dynasty community is on Drake London right now. He's 32 overall and keep trade cut, the wide receiver 12. Do I believe that he will make the jump to a wide receiver 1? There's just too much working against it for me to do that, right? First of all, I'd have to say he's one of the 12 best wide receivers in the league, and I don't know that I believe that. Then I'd have to say that he's got a healthy Kirk Cousins, which I don't know that. Then I'd have to say that the Falcons are going to run their offense through him, which I don't know that. I would think they're going to run their offense through Bijan Robinson. Now, I don't know that. Everything is brand new there. But the other thing, too, is while they may have a decent offensive mind, if I'm not mistaken, Zack Robinson as the offensive coordinator, they're still led by a defensive head coach. So at the end of the day, like, do I think that Drake London is going to overcome all those things to be a wide receiver 1? I don't. So I'd rather pivot off the hype and get something that I feel a little bit more comfortable with and tear down to get plus assets. That's why I put him on this list. I didn't do this for a first round pick. I wanted to tear down and get picks. And I found 2 trades that I just felt much more comfortable, at least in a 1-year snapshot with the production that I get, it being greater to or equal than what I believe I will get out of Drake London this season. I looked on a couple of places, Dynasty Daddy, DLF trade calculator, a couple of trades that I found that I really liked. Somebody who I'm very, very high on going into the season, Drake London for Deontay Johnson and a first and third round pick. And I am all over that trade. Then I plugged it into DLF and it pretty much worked out. It was pretty much even. And then I saw another trade, Mike Evans and a first and second round pick for Drake London. Obviously, somebody's pivoting off the age of Mike Evans and not the production, because you might be actually getting more production going from Drake London to Mike Evans. So 2 trades that I just absolutely love. Yes, they're older wide receivers. I don't care. I had this conversation with Bob where it's like, I think the dynasty community is getting better about not overreacting to age. But I think sometimes when you look at it from the other perspective with youth, people are still overreacting. And I think that's the case with Drake London. I'd rather have Deontay Johnson. I'd rather have Mike Evans. This is not a redraft mentality, but I'm trying to score points. I'm trying to win. I'd rather have those 2 wide receivers. So I'd be selling Drake London at the cost of what you can get on the trade market.
And I'm going to go ahead and disagree with one thing that you said. You might get more production out of Mike Evans. I think you can pretty much lock it in that you'll get more production from Mike Evans because that's what Mike Evans does. He produces. Let's not forget, people are valuing Drake London like a wide receiver 1. He was wide receiver 37 last year. The year before, he was wide receiver 32 or 31, if memory serves me correctly. And you make a really good point. For him to be thought of as a wide receiver 1, he has to be one of the 12 best wide receivers in the NFL. Let's take a look. Here's how the wide receivers finished out last year. So I need somebody to go ahead and tell me who's going to come out so that Drake London can come in, okay? CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, banged up right now, but should hopefully be okay by the start of the season. A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, maybe DJ Moore comes down a little bit playing with a rookie quarterback. Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, I'd say he'll probably fall down. Stephon Diggs, possibly. We're at wide receiver 9 now. Devonta Adams, maybe. Jamar Chase, Nico Collins. These are guys that are going to send. They got Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk. Now, we're outside of the top 12 now, but there's guys. Chris Olave, Devonta Smith has been a wide receiver 1 before. Amari Cooper could always pop back up there. So, Justin Jefferson was wide receiver 33 last year as well because he was hurt. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 34, coming off a down season for him. So there are guys that we have seen produce in the past that I think could definitely bump Drake London down even more. Their numbers were down for whatever reason. I love this. And it's not just about himself and us not quote unquote liking him. The values for him are just not good. They're not good. So I love where your mind is at here, Zach. And I completely agree. Again, don't hate players, we hate values. Drake London's overvalued. So basically, Zach is telling you to cash in on people overvaluing what could just be kind of a stagnant asset. So let's move on. Let's talk about my guy, because you know what? This is the I Hate Running Backs episode. Apparently, if you listen on, little spoiler there. And I'm going to sell Los Angeles Rams running back Kyren Williams, player 50 on keep trade cuts. So he's running back 8. Zach, here's the thing. You know how Nate always talks about running backs with day 3 draft capital and how he does not like that. So I'm starting to see kind of the light a little bit. They really ran the wheels off this dude last year as well. 228 carries in 2023, 1,144 yards, 12 touchdowns. He added 32 catches, 206 yards, and 3 touchdowns as well. Running back 7 on the season, 21.3 fantasy points per game. So my goal here is to sell high, recoup some value. I'm going to potentially add a running back that I believe in more long-term, if I can get a nice little running back wide receiver combo, because, hey, Zach, I've said it before, sometimes the best way to make your team better is to sell off your best assets. I mean, Zach, just real quick before I go on with what I could get for him, what do you think long-term about Kyren Williams? Do you think, I mean, is he going to be the guy? We've seen teams kind of chew through these day 3 running backs. You know, they do have a pretty decent backfield. They got Blake Corum there, who's a draft pick, and Boston Scott is there as well. Boston Scott, not the biggest ball carrier, but a really good special teams contributor, good goal line back too. He's a very good goal line back in Philadelphia. Not saying that they're going to take Kyren Williams off the field for Boston Scott, but and then Zach Evans 5th on the depth chart currently. And I did see somebody in our Discord today asking if these unofficial depth charts matter. Someone responded with no. And by the way, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. If you want to get in our Discord, you can get a week for free right now. I do want to address this, and I want to do it on the pod. Yes, the unofficial depth charts matter. And here's why. Because people gauge value off of those unofficial depth charts. So it can help you determine, should I sell a player high, like we're doing right now? Should I buy a player low? Is this guy a good or bad value right now? So yes, everything matters, because especially if it helps people figure out values, it matters, even if you don't agree with it. But if it helps you, it does matter. But Zach, what are you thinking long term? Do you think this is a good sell before I get into what I could get for him?
Well, this is such a
It's a
polarizing subject for our channel, because I'm Team Bob. I'm a Kyren fan, and look, you can do this day 3 thing all you want.
I am.
At the end of the day, we have to look a little bit deeper into, or we have to look a little bit deeper at, rather than where were they drafted, and say, how did this offense function around this player and without this player? But every statistical measure that you look at, points per game, win-loss ratio, how efficient the offense was incrementally better when Kyren Williams was there, as opposed to when he wasn't there. And to me, that is a big deal, because it doesn't take a very smart head coach, which they do have, to realize those kinds of things. We did this a couple years ago with Amon-Ra St. Brown, where it's like, oh, day 3 wide receiver. I get it. Wide receiver, running back. I get it. But we did that 2 years ago. It's like, oh, sell while you can, sell while you can. And we did it last year with Puka Nacua. Oh, day 3 wide receiver, sell while you can. It's like, no, when the offense is functioning around this person and then winning games and losing when they're not there, that to me means something. And it should mean something to you or the viewer digesting information. That should mean something to you. Just because they drafted another guy day 3 or day 2 doesn't mean they're going to displace anyone. Ask Nate how that went for Tank Bigsby, because it didn't. So when I look at the efficiency of Kyren Williams and I look at the efficiency of that offense with Kyren Williams, I'm saying I don't think that they are just moving on from Kyren Williams. And here's the other thing, and then I'll let you get back to what you're going to say, is everybody goes, oh, Sean McVay doesn't like running backs, blah, blah, never had. Todd Gurley was Sean McVay's running back for 3 seasons, and he was very efficient while doing it. Where
people get that from?
Oh, people have they cherry pick numbers all the time. They cherry pick numbers all the time, and they'll give you this list of running backs from 2019 to 2024 of the RB1 of the Rams, and it's a different running back every year. Meanwhile, from 2017 to 2019, it was the same running back. It was Todd Gurley. So it's just cherry pick.
Of course,
Just
it was a different running back every year. Todd Gurley's knees gave out. Like, what do you expect after that? And they
yeah,
didn't find anybody as good as Todd Gurley.
but nobody included those other 2 years that Todd Gurley was there. No matter who they brought in, they still gave the ball to Todd Gurley. So when you have an efficient running back, and when Sean McVay did have an efficient running back, they still continue to give that running back the ball. So look, I think at the end of the day, Blake Corum is maybe a third down back, maybe a passing down back, and absolutely a fill-in for when Kyren Williams is hurt. Do I think that he replaces Kyren Williams? Absolutely not. I think it's a 70-30, 60-40 split, and you will see Blake Corum on the field, but this is Kyren Williams' backfield. I'm not afraid of that whatsoever.
All right. Well, that being said, I'm still going to move on from him because long term, I don't know if I really see it. So, hey, you know what? But here's the thing: can I just really up my vet? Can I somehow turn Kyren Williams, who did have a good season? I'm not going to doubt that. Can I turn him into Saquon Barkley? I do think, and yes, I know there's a lot of Eagles stuff here, but I do think the Eagles will have a better offensive season this year than the Rams will. Can I get Saquon plus? People are down on Saquon Barkley right now. I did see a couple trades here. Kyren Williams for Rashad White in a second. Rashad White, very good receiving back as well. I would consider a third. I would love the second. That being said, you could also, hey, you need a running back wide receiver combo that I talked about. How about for a different day 3 running back, the high powered Chiefs offense? You can go Kyren Williams for Isaiah Pacheco and DK Metcalf. A couple weeks ago, or last week when I recorded with Bob, everyone wanted to sell DK Metcalf. So give me some of that.
I like that Pacheco and DK Metcalf trade, and
I like Isaiah Pacheco, man.
I do too. And same thing. Like that offense, when he's there, functions better than when he's not there. Here's the one thing I will say. I'm looking at your show sheet. You one of the things you said is they ran the wheels off him. 228 carries, right?
That's a lot of carries.
Okay, well, the guy that you listed, Saquon Barkley, had 542 carries in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, he has. He's also, he was also a guy coming in, being promoted as a workhorse, elite first round draft pick. So it's one of those things where Kyren Williams was, I don't know, I think he was a 5th round draft pick, kind of fell by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was combine. He was not going to be a day 3 running back. And then he had one of the worst combines that year, if you remember.
Combine matters, man. It shouldn't matter as much as it does, in my opinion. For example, I'll give you a good example. Benny Snell. Remember when he got called Benny Snail because he ran a 4.7? I thought on the field he was a little bit better at Kentucky, and then unfortunately with the Steelers he wasn't as good. But I think people put a little bit too much in the combine. So you can run really fast in shorts, man. What do I see on the field? What's your game speed look like? That's what I care about. I'm all in on Saquon. He could take it. And let's not forget, he's also playing behind the best offensive line he's ever played with this year. So I don't think he's going to have to be fighting for his life as much. And he could be a guy that actually benefits from getting the ball less, might be more efficient because there's so many other weapons around him, unlike in New York, where there was Isaiah Hodgins, Kenny Galladay. We could go on, but we won't. Zach, who are you selling next? I can't believe when I saw you put this on here.
Yeah, I didn't feel really good about it, but I got to be real with myself. And look, I like Jayden Reed, but I got to put him on this list. 77th on Keep Trade Cut. I was surprised that he's wide receiver 31 on Keep Trade Cut. I feel like that's gone down in the last few months because of all the rhetoric around everyone else, including the Hopium Player of the Year in Dontavian Wicks. I do like Jayden Reed's talent, but it's so damn crowded in Green Bay in that wide receiver room. And I'm just not sure how much he can stand out with all the mouths to feed. The one thing I will say, heavily targeted in the red zone. I think 18 red zone targets last year. That's great, but a lot of that was without Christian Watson. How is Dontavian Wicks going to factor into that? From everything I'm seeing, Romeo Doubs has been the best wide receiver in training camp thus far. So this is not a anti-Jayden Reed thing as much as it is everything else around him. And you see how – look, again, I'm going to take the same point that I brought to the Kyren Williams discussion and say, how did this offense flourish? It wasn't necessarily based or predicated around Jayden Reed. It was predicated on finding the open guy, spreading the ball around to all the wide receivers, to all the, they have 2 tight ends there. They just brought in Josh Jacobs. They just brought in Marshawn Lloyd, who I think we're all big fans of on this channel. So there's just too much volume in terms of talent in Green Bay. And so do I feel good about Jayden Reed specifically at the value? No, not necessarily. Can I move him, Mike, for a safer floor of points in my lineup? So what do I mean by that? A trade that I saw on DLF, I saw Deebo Samuel straight up for Jayden Reed. Obviously, as of recording this, there's a lot going on with the Brandon Ayuk situation. We don't know how it's going to play out, but I'd still feel safer even with Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco with Deebo Samuel on my roster than Jayden Reed, because I just feel like I'm sometimes in these situations I play the safer floor as opposed to the higher ceiling, and Deebo Samuel to me is a much safer floor. Another trade that I saw, this was a really interesting one, and one that I would absolutely pull the trigger on. Can I get Jalen Waddle and a 25-second for Jayden Reed and a 25 first? You have to move your first-round pick there, but I think that I'm getting a player in a much more high-powered offense who's a top 2 target in that offense, as opposed to Jayden Reed, who one week is the top target, the next week he could be targeted 3 or 4 times. And we saw even in the playoffs where he had weeks where he had 0 targets. Now, look, there was injuries, there was other things like that, but those things matter when we're talking about safety and a safe floor in your starting lineups.
Yeah, I like the Jalen Waddle trade, especially second receiving option on that offense. I like it. Let's talk about who I am selling next, and that is Baltimore Ravens running back Derrick Henry. I'm allowed to do this because Nate's not here. He'd have it out with me, but that's okay. You know what? Look, there's 2 main factors here: age and a new team. And I know that running back typically translates pretty well to a new team, but the age is a concern. And again, I am selling another candidate high for if I could get a little bit younger. I definitely want to do that. Check this out, though. We're talking about guys who've had the wheels run off them. He has 2,030 career carries. He has led the NFL in rush attempts in both 22 and 23. So 2 of the last 2 years, he had 349 and 22, 280 and 23. He's been relatively healthy throughout his career. He's a running back. He has missed time. Running backs miss time. It's what they do. But I'm selling a reliable back. I'm hoping to get younger. I'm hoping to get plus assets on top of moving an aging player like Derrick Henry. But I would rather sell for a player like Joe Mixon. I think that he doesn't have as mobile of a quarterback, guy who's not going to steal as many goal line rushes away from as many rushes, period. And I do think Joe Mixon has shown that he could be a bit more of a receiving back than Derrick Henry has. I would sell Derrick Henry for Isaiah Pacheco, and I would try for a second. Again, I'm in on the Isaiah Pacheco bandwagon. Could I do Derrick Henry for Najee Harris? People are also out on Najee Harris. Everyone's saying, hey, Jalen Warren is it. I still think Najee Harris is the guy. Both of those guys can flourish under Arthur Smith. And again, you could be a good offensive coordinator and not a good head coach. And I think that's the case for Arthur Smith. Might be able to maybe get a little bit of plus on top of Najee. I don't think much, though. What are your thoughts on these, Zach?
I really like that Pacheco trade. Joe Mixon and Najee Harris just feels like, if you want that guy over Derrick Henry, fine. I don't. I'd rather have Derrick Henry. Okay. I'm looking at all those. Look, even Najee Harris. Najee Harris to me could have like that Todd Gurley trajectory where one year he's just gone. Like not his knees. It could be anything. He's been running in the ground in Pittsburgh. Like he's a good running back. There's nothing particularly special about him. I'd rather have Derrick Henry, but I do like that Pacheco trade because if I could pivot off that age and maintain 80 to 90% of the production, I'll do that.
Zach, who's your next player that you're selling now?
Part of doing this show and being invited to the podcast is knowing your audience, and that audience is Michael Bauer. So I had to include somebody that might ruffle some feathers. And speaking of feathers, that's going to be Philadelphia Eagles running back Saquon Barkley on Keep Trade Cut. He's 53rd overall, but he is RB9.
For the record, Zach can't ruffle my feathers when he's wrong, but go on.
Okay. Among 23 running backs with 200 plus carries in 2023, Saquon Barkley ranked 23rd in EPA per rush, 18th in yards per carry, 10th in yards after contact, 16th in success rate, and 13th in explosive rush. Look, I know you can make the argument about the offensive line. It's hard to argue all the statistics, okay? Over 1,200 career carries, if we're going to talk about usage. And then I pulled this information from an Ian Hartitz tweet where basically Devin Singletary in yards per carry, yards after contact per carry, missed tackles forced per carry, and explosive play run rate. Devin Singletary has better numbers than Saquon Barkley in all four of those measures. Not to necessarily say I'm trading Saquon Barkley for Devin Singletary.
No, you're saying that. That's exactly what you're saying, Zach.
Listen, just call me Joe Shane for the next minute or two here, right?
Doing it.
But I did see some trades that I liked here, and that's why I really brought this up, because I saw another Eagle that I could trade for Saquon Barkley for, and that's Devonta Smith. And I would really, I'd be ecstatic with that trade. Pivot off the age, get the youth, get a more valuable position at the wide receiver spot. And then if I wanted to get a running back and wide receiver, tear down from Saquon Barkley to James Cook and add Deebo Samuel on top. I can fill 2 starting roles there and potentially even finish with a better running back. Who knows? There's a lot of unknown with James Cook in that offense and Saquon Barkley and his role in that offense, because as you know, Jalen Hurts does take away a lot of touchdowns. So if I can pivot off Saquon Barkley to James Cook and add a Deebo Samuel, I'd be happy to do that.
The only question I have about James Cook, because you even said you don't know with that offense. There were times last year, and I remember when the Bills played the Eagles, they were giving Latavius Murray carries in situations like, why are you not just giving it to James Cook? And now they have Ray Davis there, Ty Johnson still there. There were times where I thought their usage of James Cook was just odd. And James Cook had a great year, and I think he could have had a better year. I understand both of these. The one thing I do want to say, the comparison for Devin Singletary and Saquon Barkley, I've been telling people to buy Devin Singletary for years. The dude's a good running back. He's a good fantasy running back too. He's super reliable, and I think he's going to have as decent of a season you can have on the New York Giants. Let's not forget, Devin Singletary spent a majority of his career on better teams than Saquon Barkley has as well. So and Devin Singletary has also been a guy where they've tried to replace him how many times. They just had to stop and just not re-sign him to replace him, essentially, because he was just so good. He was hard to take off the field. I like Devin Singletary, and I think Devin Singletary is going to be probably a really solid running back too. And a guy you just want in your starting lineup. Buy Devin Singletary now. One more for you. Hey, the Mike Hates running back tour goes on. I'm selling Green Bay Packers running back Josh Jacobs, player 84 on Keep Trade Cut, running back 15. So it's another guy with a lot of career carries, 1,305. And by the way, he's only played a full season in his career once. Zack, that was in 2022. And the best ability is availability, is it not? Damn straight it is. And in 2023, check this out, Zack. He had career lows in games played, 13. Actually, that tied his rookie year, 2019. Yards, 805. Touchdowns, 6. First downs, 34. And yards per carry, 3.5. So I understand that the Packers are a better team than the Raiders, but still, there is just so many weapons there in Green Bay. Young quarterback. I do like what Green Bay is putting together. I would rather have Marshawn Lloyd for the long term out of the Packers backfield, because I don't think A.J. Dillon poses much of a threat long term. This Jacobs deal is 2-year deal, was really a 1-year deal. So if I could move him for 2 seconds, I would strongly consider it. Would you rather have Josh Jacobs or Najee Harris? I'm going back to him again. Should I just sell him for Isaiah Pacheco? I've been doing that all day. Why not? Third time's a charm, right, Zach?
What about finding a deal where you trade Josh Jacobs for Marshawn Lloyd plus?
Yeah, what kind of plus do you think it would be? Like, if we're not putting a pick on it, but we want to get a player,
Maybe
could
like
we do
like a Christian Kirk?
Ooh, yeah, that would be nice. What about like a Josh Downs?
No, that's not enough. It's not enough production.
Enough.
Yeah, I need a Christian Kirk or Deontay Johnson, or give me a middle-aged wide receiver in there.
Yeah, I would do it for Christian Kirk and Marshawn Lloyd. I'd be very interested in that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the deal. I'd like to get that young running back that's going to be the Packers running back in a year or two, and then get some plus on top of that. I like that deal.
I think he gets carries this year too. He's just too good to know.
Oh yeah, 100%.